we talked to him almost maybe a couple of weeks before he died. No, we talked to him, and we knew he was a short timer. And we keep telling him, chingao, ¿pa qué? ¿Pa qué te quedas? I mean, ya te vas a ir para la casa, vete para la casa ya una vez, don't try to stick, don't, in other words, don't go and fly anymore. In other words, don't get on the helicopters. And the reason I met him was because I used to haul fuel for the jets and the aircrafts and the helicopters and the Hueys and the Chinooks. We used to refuel all those, and that's how I met him through another friend, que era Rogelio Cantu, and that's where we became friends. So when we had a chance, when we found out that he was able to get off, they were separated from our unit. We weren't in the same unit. There was different units there where we were stationed. There was Chulai way up far away from us, and we were stationed over here in Quija, which was a village closer to the coastline. So muchos mexicanos que eran de ahí, pues tú sabes, when you would get a break, you would see them at the beach, because they had a beach there along the Red China Sea, and you'd meet people, like people from El Paso, de aquí de San Antonio, de Brownsville. We met people from all over the place, even de California, que eran mexicanos. So that's how we met him. But I really didn't. I didn't. Como se dice? I wasn't in the unit that he was in, so I didn't actually see him participate in all the operations that he did. I know there were several operations that they were involved in, but man, when we heard that he had gotten killed, there was 4 of us. It was myself, Roger Cantu, Amado Plaza, and my friend era un gringo, a real good friend of mine. We went to Vietnam together, David Riley. David Riley era de Indiana, y Roger Cantu era de aquí de San Antonio conmigo, porque I grew up with him in the neighborhood. Y Amado Plaza también era de San Antonio, but I can't remember what unit he was in. I know that Roger Cantu was in the rifle company. He was the one that would guard our base, that he was on the 3rd platoon or something like that. And Roger fue el que me dijo a mí que lo que le había pasado, que he had been on a flight because he was a gunner. He was a machine gunner on the helicopter. So, man, we all broke down, because, I mean, pues apenas iba a ir para la casa, ya, no. And we had told him, don't fly anymore, dude. Stay over here in the backside, no, pero you need to, because they would get more money for flights, because if you're Vietnam, you get money for being in Vietnam, and then if you were hazardous pay, like he would get at flying as a gunner, he would get that extra money, and he would always tell us, pues yo soy de México, pero yo necesito mandarle dinero a mi familia. So that's how I knew him. I knew him for a very short time. I didn't really get to know him like if I was in his unit. But we became friends because cuando nos juntábamos que había quebrada, we would communicate. We would relay messages to each other from one side of the place that we were at up towards Chulai and up around Anton and stuff. Those villages that were around. So that's how we would communicate. So and they would tell us, yeah, I'll try to be there if we get a chance, and si puedo yo voy, o si no puedo, pues ahí los dejo como quiera. But we had some good times, shooting the bull, and getting together, and knowing the little bit that I knew about him, and I always thought, I admired him. Dije, chinga, mira, este vato viene de México y está en el Marine Corps, he was trying to, and they were supposed to give him his citizenship because of that. El VMO-6 was separated from MAPS 36, where I was with the Marine Air Base Squadron 36, and we were over here in Quija. And I know VMO-6 was somewhere in that area, but I can't remember where. Yeah, cuando nosotros nos juntábamos era, it was far in between when we did that. But I was able to meet him, and like I said, he would come, and I remember him telling us, pues yo soy de México y yo le mando cuando él decía que él mandaba el dinero para su casa, we thought maybe to Mexico, but we didn't know that he was from Heritage. He never mentioned that to us, because cuando nos juntaron era más, puro vacil, ¿de dónde eres tú? Pues yo soy de San Antonio, y el otro, yo soy del Paso del Chuco, cosas, those kind of things, o yo soy de New Braunfels y los camaradas que yo conozco, pues tú sabes los nombres que me acuerdo. Plaza era de aquí de San Antonio y Roger Cantú era de aquí de San Antonio. So most of the time we got, y el gringo ese que te digo that he was my best friend, David Riley. Me and him did 2 tours in Vietnam. That really brought my, when I saw that, me dio como un resentimiento, un sentimiento like, God, it's gotta be who it was, That's why I said, when I wrote on that Facebook thing, I said that I met him while I was in Kika, Vietnam. I wish I would have known him a lot more than we had, but usually the times that we had when we were together, or which was foreign in between, there were foreign few in between. Each of us had our own areas, and then when they got off, sometimes we didn't get off. We'd be on convoys going through Quảng Nam Province and all this stuff, to Tam Key, places like that, and it was just like foreign in between. But when we did get together, most of the time we just enjoyed the company and really forget what we were doing as far as our service in Vietnam, and just enjoy our the camaraderie, the group that we had there as Mexicanos, And cuando teníamos la chance nomás, hey, ¿sabes qué? Vamos para allá, para aquel lado, y a ver si hallamos a Pérez, y vamos a ver si hallamos a Treviño, y Roger Cantú, y Plaza, y pues uno dice, I got guard duty, man, I can't go, or whatever, and Rudy would say, hey, I got to stay back because we're on call in case something comes up. So that was the reason why we only had a few meetings when we did get a chance to. But when we did get a chance, man, all we did was talk about puro vacil, joke around, have a good time with each other. Because después ya no lo dieron a ver, we would never know what would happen to one or the other. But that was the case. But I was glad that I was able to see that, because it just stuck in my mind. Yeah, God, that name. It's gotta be, it's gotta be the one that I knew in during that time, 1966. Hell, I was only 20 years old, Chinga, when I went out there, and then of course I turned 21 on my second tour, because we had made that pact with us 4 guys. But it was something that was just like, ¿cómo se dice? Lo vamos a desquitar. In other words, vamos a hacer un pact, man. Tienes que, we're going to re-up, or not, we're going to request another, because I volunteered to go to Vietnam. I wasn't drafted. I volunteered to go into the Marine Corps. I couldn't go to college. We couldn't afford it. No gente pobre de madre aquí de San Anto. So, I joined the Marine Corps. Then a lot of people say, "No, estás muy flaco. You're not gonna make it." Well, shit, I made it. And then I made it to boot camp, and stuff like that. Because a lot of people would say that no. I always had that my nickname was Spider, and I've always had that nickname from high school. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're keeping his memory alive, because he didn't have any offsprings. So that's good that you're doing that. And you know what? I'm glad that I was able to take the time to look at that article, and the name, it just resounded in my mind, God, I mean, it's gotta be, and like I said, the little period of time that I met him, it was nothing but good times, because that was the amount of time that we were allowed. You get a little bit of time off, and you'd call, you try to get in contact, because the organizations, the different units were scattered around that area between Da Nang and Anton and Kiha and Tam Key. And those units were scattered around. So when we get a chance, you go up to Chu Lai, and if you had a guy up there, Castañeda, I would tell Castañeda, hey, you know what? We're gonna get together with several guys. We would just mention names, and then of course. Rudy would come up también, and hey, can you get a chance, man? Come on down. We're gonna be at the beach, and that's when I told you that I stole that San Miguel beer from the Seabees. At least I have something a little bit to relate to you, because I wasn't in his unit, but we were able to communicate and get together on those seldom occasions that we were able to. And like I told you, I just shared that moment that we had gotten together. We had passed the word. The word of mouth gets passed faster than shit, bro. Yeah. But I had to go to July to fuel up our tankers so we could have our tankers loaded, right, for the jets and the helicopters and stuff. And then we would pass the word around there. Hey, dile a Rudy que vamos a estar allá en Quija, or because they were not that far apart. They were kind of, I would say, about maybe 3 or 4 miles up the road along the coastline where Chulai was, and then we were down here by the village of Quija, and then there was a little island that had an area where the Viet Cong would try to come in through to get to us. But anyway, at least I was able to share a little bit and then tell you how I wound up finding out that he had passed. And of course, we had talked to him, like I told you before, que le habían dicho, ¿para qué chingados quieres volar ya, vato? Ya nomás te quedan, fíjate, 3 días es lo que que yo me acuerdo que nos había dicho, ya nomás me quedan 3 días. Le dije, pues don't go any more flights, man. Find out how the way you get out of that shit. And I remember he just said, pues yo necesito mandarle feria a mi familia.